No matter how nice your kids are, you shouldn't stay with them in old age. Living together can be fun for a short time, but it can be hard in the long run. Let me know if you like this video before we start. You can help me reach more people and teach them about getting older. Before we begin, I want to let you know there's a thoughtful little tip waiting for you at the end of this video. Something I believe could gently lift your day or bring you new perspective. If you feel at home here, please like this video, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss what's to come. And just so I know you're here with me, please comment, "I'm here and open to learn." It means so much to read your words. Now let's begin. Many elderly people worry that no one will take care of them as they get older. They think no one will help them when they're sick or in trouble. They also would rather be with their kids or grandchildren than be by themselves. In light of this, they decide to move in with their kids. Like different finger lengths, in their minds there are good children and bad. Because of this, they don't want to spend their golden years with their own kids. Because of this, the oldest child usually ends up living with the older family member. As my dear friends, I know it can be hard to live with your wonderful children when you're 60 years old. Sharing a house for a long time might be fun for a while, but it usually ends up being more trouble than it's worth. Take a moment to think about the stories below to see why. Before telling anyone about herself, Mrs. Daw began by saying, "I'm a mother who has lived in the country all her life and worked in the fields, so I'm used to being dirty. My husband and I had to drop out of school to start a family because we were poor. We had a boy and a girl. Even though it was hard, we did everything we could to make sure they were safe and able to go to school. Both of them did well in life because they were smart. Following in her son's footsteps, our daughter went to college. Both were given awards for their academic work. As soon as they graduated, they had no trouble finding great jobs. They are usually too busy with work, social life, and living in the city to visit often. We're happy with how simple our life is. They only come back on holidays and other important days. In our role as parents, we did the right thing. Their happiness and well-being are very important. As parents, we felt like rock stars when our son and daughter got married. She was scared about giving birth while the wife of our son was pregnant. Our son asked me if I could help them in any way. I felt like I had to help them, so I said yes. When I got there, though, my daughter-in-law didn't seem to care. She told me that they could get help, so our son shouldn't be a bother. She added, "It's not ideal to live with my mother-in-law. The things we do and how we spend our time are very different." I said, "If being around you is a bother, it means you don't see me as your mother." Instead of talking, she changed the subject of the conversation. Luckily, I was able to help with the birth and everything went well. I made sure not to get in the way of her choices or disrespect her independence. In order to avoid any problems, I talked to her about everything ahead of time. Not long after that, I heard my son and daughter-in-law getting very mad at each other. She told me that she didn't like having me there and that it was bothering her. I thought about joining, but in the end, I decided not to. I didn't sleep well that night. I was upset to learn that my son's wife didn't like living with me. Even though we get along well, it might be best for us to live apart. There may be disagreements after living together for a while. I got everything ready the next morning and made breakfast for the whole family. I could see that my son-in-law's eyes were getting bigger from crying. She said, "I heard the fight last night and it made me sad. I came here to help, not to make trouble. If being around you makes you feel bad, I will leave. I like living in the country anyway." My son asked me to stay a little longer, but I said no. Later, my son's wife texted me to say she was sorry and to say she would come see us in the country with their new baby once they were settled. I felt better as soon as I read her message. There are bound to be problems when you live with someone for a long time. Try to get to know each other if you can't live together. Unfortunately, We live far apart, but we should still try to avoid making each other upset. They had a place to live instead of renting. They built a temporary house on a 40 square meter plot. There are still lots of good people in the world. The grandparents had nothing to give their children after they got married and had a second child. All they had was a single plot of land on the edge of Hanoi, more than 10 kilometers from the city center. The kids said they didn't want to live there because it was too far away. If I sold it, I would lose half of the plot's value. The grandparents kept it because they wanted to leave something to their grandchildren. But after the grandkids were born, they lost their jobs and couldn't pay rent, so the grandparents split. They helped take care of the grandchildren in Hanoi. They each took care of a child in Nan and Hoang Ma. They were both in Hanoi, but they couldn't see each other for a month. It was inconvenient to rent a home, and the kids would often talk about moving back to their hometown, selling the house in Hanoi, and moving in with their grandchildren to make caregiving easier. But none of the kids wanted to live with their parents because they worked in different places. The grandparents sold the house in the country for 1.4 billion Vietnamese dong, and the piece of land in the suburbs for the same amount. They then gave the money to their 2 children so that they could buy apartments over time. Every child bought an apartment. They were thrilled that their grandchildren could now call this place home. But the happiness didn't last long. It looked like the oldest and youngest kids were fighting over who would take care of them. There were just as many fights between the daughters-in-law as there were between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. In the end, the grandparents moved in with the older child because their 2-bedroom, 70 square meter apartment was bigger than the younger child's. The grandparents felt suffocated when they lived with their children, and things got worse when the grandmother died. The grandfather was even more lonely. Please leave the first comment below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me and that you think these lessons are helpful. Thanks for your time. The grandfather feels the worst about the fact that his wife died away from home 4 years ago from lung cancer. It was very hard for her in her last days in the city. Even though they lived close to the hospital, family and friends couldn't visit very often because of the distance. The wife always looked at the wall and said she wanted to go back to their hometown. Family members from the country wanted to come visit, but they weren't sure because it would be too much trouble. The wife often said she wished they had left some of their money to the kids so they could buy a small piece of land in their hometown and live with relatives. When the grandfather thinks back on those hard times, he wishes he hadn't sold all the land in the country to move to the city with his kids. They want to be close to their kids, and they want to be near their kids, and the kids want their parents to live in the city for easier care. A lot of people think that they can repay their parents by getting rich, but that's only part of the story. Care, attention, and being emotionally close are more important. Kids forget that sometimes all they need are a few kind words and care. Third, giving land to different kids. I'm going to see Mr. Liu today. He is sick and wants to sell land to pay for treatment. I will have a lot of thoughts when I leave. His husband died almost 10 years ago, Mr. Liu, who is over 70 years old, said. Their 2 sons were now living on their own. They had saved money and worked hard to buy land and build big homes for each son. They also had a few plots of land left over as a reserve. Then Mr. Liu's husband got sick out of the blue and died early. Mr. and Mrs. Liu had to work hard to buy land and build houses. Other than the land, they didn't have any savings or a pension. They worked hard, which made them sick and old fast. Mrs. Liu was also very sad after her husband died and had a small stroke. After that, she got chronic illnesses that made it hard for her to move. She worried about getting old, so she called her sons and split the land between them. Since the older son lived with her, she gave him more. She believed this was fair, but both sons showed signs of being unhappy. The older son didn't think he got enough, even though he was taking care of his sick mother. The younger son, on the other hand, was mad that the older brother got more. There were also problems with the daughters-in-law. The older son moved Mrs. Liu to an apartment that was better for their needs. They didn't give much support. The family members who used to visit often stopped coming over time, which made Mrs. Liu very sad. The younger son didn't come to visit because he didn't like how the land was split up. After years of struggling and being alone, Mrs. Liu decided to move to a nursing home after getting advice from family and friends. The younger son's wife and he were very against selling the land to pay for treatment. They said the land was valuable and shouldn't be sold, even though Mrs. Liu owned it. They thought it was valuable and didn't want to sell it. But Mrs. Liu can't sell the house without the kids' permission, even if it's in their names. As the law says, they are all equal heirs. After Mrs. Liu told them this, she broke down in tears of sadness and regret. Even after Mrs. Liu died, her children were still fighting over who should get the land. The land was divided orally, but the paperwork was still in the parents' names. Some young people work hard for years to save money for their kids and then get a small house on a main road to live in. They are old, but they still have to work hard to pay off the land they bought for their kids. It might be hard for the older son and daughter-in-law to deal with the land they inherited that is on a main road. They are in a lot of pain and only want to share what they have. They don't really want to do that. She says that it would be fair for everyone if they split the land in half. Some older individuals prioritize their children's inheritance and struggle to share the land, even in difficult times. Rich people should be the ones to build their big homes first. Life goes on, and then all of a sudden, old age comes along with no land to fall back on. They are afraid to sell the land to get more money. At the same time, those who have gone far away and not yet received their land share, or who got less, become unhappy. When there are disagreements, the responsibility to the parents naturally changes. They come to measure the land. The fight within the group over the land has not ended yet and will not for a long time. Could it be that parents also teach their children how to destroy each other? The house has a maid from Saigon who helps divide land. She says her home is in District 4. There were 12 kids in her family, 8 boys and 4 girls. The house is just around the corner, but the land is pretty big. Her father died young, leaving her mother by herself. They were not doing well financially. Her mother used to rent out 2 rows of 18 rooms. She let people rent out the other rooms and kept 4 for her family. There were kids who moved to America, kids who worked hard to buy their own homes, kids who got married, and kids who joined the military or police and were given houses. Because some of them were poor, they stayed in one of the rooms their mother rented out. When she was still mentally sound, her mother wrote a will that gave each child an equal share of the rooms, no matter if they were boys or girls, expatriates or street vendors. Every child had their own room. Truong, who worshipped the dead, and Ut, who was the sickest and weakest of the group, also received a room. She kept the last 4 rooms outside, fixed them up, and rented them out to people, keeping the money for herself. This wasn't written into the will of any child. Her mother is now over 90 years old and can't think straight, but she still lives a very nice life. The daughter, who is now over 50 years old, knows that her mother had a great plan when she gave the land to her children many years ago. From the time she was very young, her mother built 18 rental rooms on her own. Please leave a second comment below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me and that you think these lessons are helpful. Thanks for your time. The daughter got married and had 2 kids. Her husband, who was hooked on gambling, then left. She and her kids moved back into the room her mom had given them years before. They worked hard. Now that the kids have their own families, she works as a maid to make money for a while. The room for the elderly is still there, so she goes back to her mother every Sunday. She says that she might have died if her mother hadn't given her such a big room. The rental house is now some very wealthy siblings don't take, but give to the people who took good care of the mother. Some people still live there, some rent it out, and some give it to their siblings. But everyone is happy and thinks that their parents' house is a safe place to be when life gets rough. In reality, their mother has never needed money or moved in with them, even though the kids take turns taking care of her. Instead, they are all close to her because they are afraid of losing her. Just like before, someone is doing some math in the house and wants to talk to the siblings about selling the house together to get a good price and split the money. This is what the daughter said, but the mom and daughter have never come to an agreement. For the daughter, this is home, air, and life. It might not matter to the rich or people who live somewhere else. Before and after she dies, she and her siblings plan to sell their mother's share of the land. They will use the money to build a place of worship and have a proper funeral for her. Thinking back to when they lived in the country, their house had 6 siblings. One sister got married, leaving 2 brothers to take care of the house. Their dad told them that their grandfather had given him land on which to build a 5-room house. Their dad saved money all his life and finally bought land outside of the village. They bought land past the dike in case their 2 sons needed a place to live when they got older and moved out. They learned one day that their dad had sold the land outside the dike. He sent it to his oldest daughter in exchange for several bushels of rice. The dad asked about it after selling it already. "Oh, you think it's because my dad sold the land that we don't have enough money?" The father laughed as he said, "This is my business and the teachers should mind their own business." He had sold the land years ago and the few tons of rice had become billions. The way my dad thinks about this, though, is much more important to me than the money. Years later, I was lost, tired, and ready to give up. I thought about moving back to the country to live with my parents, but when I thought about their small house in a poor neighborhood, I knew the future wouldn't be good there, so I worked hard to stay, adapt, and survive. In the past, everywhere I worked, people kept chickens out in the country. Because the village wasn't very wealthy, the dad built a chicken coop right in front of the house. Sheep and their coop got up every day, crossed the paved courtyard, and went to the garden. The chickens went back to the coop in the evening. They didn't come back to make a mess when the courtyard was clean. They knew that going to the garden for food was better than going back to the paved yard. When I went to see my dad one time, it was just the 2 of us. He told me that my grandfather left the land at the end of the village and Nam's land. He gave me this land because it is family land. I should try to keep this land and never sell it, no matter what. Keeping the land where your ancestors lived is like keeping your roots. The family also purchased a small piece of land outside the dike. It was too small to be in the kids' will, but big enough to build a small house for them to go to during a storm. I tightly gripped my dad's hand and nodded to show that I understood. The ancestral land and the small piece of land in the country are still whole after my father died. I've been able to buy land and houses in a lot of different places. The good news is that none of us had to go back or think about fighting over the land that our grandparents and parents left us. Some people say that morals have gotten worse over the years and that lust and greed have taken over. Parents and children, siblings and other family members fight over who gets to own land in cities, villages, and forests. This is definitely true. But these kinds of problems have always been there. They're just more obvious now that mass media has grown. The old proverb still holds true. We shouldn't worry too much about the future, or we'll be filled with regret and discontent in our later years. The adage, parents should raise their kids with the hope that they will reach great heights, like the aspirations that point to the sky, holds some truth. The truth is that kids often have to take care of their parents after they die, and death is something we can't avoid. The future is still something we can't predict or control. Even if someone has a lot of money and assets, bad planning can put their safety at risk and not protect them from the unknowns of old age or their children's future well-being. No matter how hard we try, some things about life and survival will always be the same. The basic rules that govern life and survival are almost impossible to change. To get there, To live well, we must know these unchanging rules and align our plans with them. When it comes to planning and distributing assets, this is the smartest way to make sure of a good future for one's children and a safe old age. As evening got closer, there was a slight tension in the air. As Away slowly walked toward me, he cast a short, thoughtful glance my way. The atmosphere stayed quiet during the game that day, and no one spoke to each other again. The conversations I had with Ho and Trung made me think a lot during the dinner that followed. Freshly fried fish, which was likely the result of his earlier that afternoon fishing trip, improved the meal. I would have pushed the fish to the side of my plate when my mom put it on there, because I knew he caught it. Today, though, I pretended not to know, and took it with a calm acceptance. Grandma and Mom looked at each other and smiled, clearly happy with how I was acting. Not long ago, something scary happened in the village. Thieves had been after the house next door, where Miss Tuan lived. At first, 2 chickens were stolen, and then several more were taken over the next few days. The neighborhood was disturbed by Mrs. Tuan's frantic cries and the noise they caused. I usually get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, but I'm afraid to go outside now. Tonight, I heard someone quietly open the door and walk out. It seemed strange to me, and a troubling thought came to mind. He made me think that he might be the thief. All of a sudden, a scream came from Mzan's house. I heard pounding feet and saw Mom and Grandma run out of the house shouting. I jumped up and ran out too. He was tying up the thief with one hand, while putting one foot on the thief's back. I could see this scene in front of me. The thief, who was pleading, was taken to the commune to be dealt with. Everyone turned to praise him at that moment, but I still didn't like him. Getting a thief wasn't something I thought was cool. Please leave the third comment below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me and that you think these lessons are helpful. Thanks for your time. I no longer felt afraid of ghosts or thieves when he was home, though, after that day. The day after my dad died, he got up very early, went to the fields, and then came back to cook a chicken for the feast. Mom was busy cooking and going to the store. His military uniform was green with stars on it, and he stood solemnly in front of the altar. Then my dad turned to me and asked me to come lead the ceremony. He was saying prayers. Even though I didn't want to, I quietly did what he said. As the new school year got closer, I saw him hard at work cutting a piece of burlap fabric in the evening, and then giving it to his mom to sew. Mom gave me a beautiful school bag on the first day of school. I said I didn't care, but I actually really liked it. Dang Ha came to play and really liked it, so he asked for it. Mom asked, "Who gave you permission to ask for it?" I was scared, so I told him, "Give it to me if you don't use it." "Who says I won't use it?" I forgot that he made the bag for me after putting my books and notebooks in it. People at school liked my new bag, which made me blush. The history teacher talked about the brave people who died for our commune. She talked about him in her story. People in my class were shocked, but I pretended nothing happened and kept reading. In our commune, there is a war veteran who lost an arm, the teacher's voice went on. Even though he lost an arm and has many scars from the war, he still stands for our commune in building the homeland. Because of his ideas and work, our school is much better now than it was before. He hurt his arm because he was brave and looked out for his friends. You already know that the person he looked out for was Min's dad. He didn't die in battle because of that. Who told you that? I forgot that the teacher was in the room when I jumped up. Ask your mother if you don't believe it, my dad told me. That's not true, you're lying, I yelled, and left the class. I didn't go home that afternoon. I just walked along the dike. I heard my name being called from the dike as the sun went down. The wind carried the voices of Mom, the teacher, and Grandma. It was dusty, and there were wild roses and thick sugarcane fields on the way down to the dike. I didn't want to believe that he had saved my father. I couldn't live with a lie. What makes him want to take my mother if he gave up his life to save my father? I was crying and didn't notice the cobra coming up behind me. It was almost too late by the time I saw it. The snake bit. As I ran toward it, it was about to bite me when he showed up. He killed it right before my eyes. We were both in the hospital room when I woke up. Grandma and Mom were sad. I got scared as I sat up and looked at him in bed, weak and tired. I heard my mom say that he was treated for poisoning and was now fine. "Wake up, Uncle," I yelled, forgetting how much I hated him. "Dad, get up! Dad, you're my dad!" "Awaken!" A soft hand touched mine. When I opened my eyes, I saw his loving, warm eyes. It hit me that I could still be happy, like my other classmates, even though my biological father was dead. That's because I still had him in this world. He's my dad. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this message touched your heart, we'd be honored if you'd subscribe and click the bell to stay connected. Every view, every kind word, helps keep this journey going. And if you believe in the power of energy and connection, type your age in the comments below. It's said that each number shared adds to the collective strength, and the universe sends back a little extra light and life in return. Now, imagine this. By sharing this video with just 5 others, you're helping create a wave of healing energy. Some believe that the simple act of sharing can attract longer life, deeper peace, and universal blessings for everyone involved. Keep shining. You are a gift to this world.